And then from one day to the next, all of that is gone. And now we're in a different place. And what looks like post-trauma stress, and some of it may be and probably is, but a lot of it just may be a complete lack of who am I now? What purpose do I serve? Why do I exist? And that has become a conversation that more and more people are having. And interestingly, not just in the military or out of the military, but people who've been in corporate settings for a long time or other environments where there's a strong identity component. When that ends and life moves on, if you don't reestablish your identity, this is who I am, then other things will start to fall as well.
Welcome to Normalize The Conversation by Inspiring My Generation. I'm your host, Francesca Reicherter. Today, I'm joined by Jeremy Stalnecker, a former U.S. Marine Corps infantry officer and recipient of the Navy Commendation Medal with V for Combat Valor in Iraq. Jeremy is also the executive director of Mighty Oaks Foundation, where he works to support veterans and their families navigating the challenges of trauma, purpose, and life after service. In this episode, we talk about the realities of trauma and healing, what it means to move forward after experiences that change you, and how community, leadership, and purpose can play a wonderful role in rebuilding your life. If you've ever struggled to find hope after adversity, or wondered how people rebuild meaning after deep challenges, this conversation is for you. Let's dive in. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining me today. I am very excited for our conversation, but before we begin, I want to check in. How are you really?
Really, I'm doing well. I think things are good. Yeah, no complaints at all. I have times where I do have complaints. Today is not one of them, though.
I love that. Perfect day for a podcast recording.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
That's how I'm feeling today, too. Last night, I was really upset and frustrated. And then today I woke up actually happy and like calm.
Yeah.
I was like, perfect day to have a microphone.
It's hard to know what causes that sometimes, right? You have those ups and downs but it's good to feel this way.
Yeah, it is. And one thing that I've really loved, so as soon as I got up this morning, I unfortunately grabbed my phone right away, which I try to avoid doing. But I grabbed it because I was reviewing the topics I was recording today, and I wrote it down because I loved it so much. I think what really turned my day around was, you said, being able to turn that purpose into a reason for being here. We talked about that last time we spoke, and I had written that down, and it really stuck with me when I woke up this morning and I saw that something inside me shifted. I was frustrated with work and just life, and then I was like, being able to create that reason to be here from that purpose in my work. So I'm excited for this conversation.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, me too. Thank you. Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah. So I won't go all the way back, but my first real job after college, I served in the United States Marine Corps. I was an infantry officer. I did a number of things which I really enjoyed. The last deployment that I had, though, the last part of my time on active duty was in Iraq in 2003 as part of all of the things that happened there. And so went and did that. Again, it sounds strange to people outside of the military, but for me, it's the thing that I had pointed my life toward and found a lot of fulfillment in. And then having the opportunity to put into practice the things that we had been training for and preparing for really was kind of a lifelong dream. And so I did that. And I say all of that to say, then I transitioned out of the Marine Corps, went into ministry. I started working at a church. And in the process of all of that, the thing that I had always wanted to do, I did. The thing that gave me a lot of meaning and a lot of value was now gone. And even though I was in a church environment, a ministry environment, I really started struggling. And so learned a lot during that time. And it was, I always tell people it was about a year. My wife would say it was about 10 years. It took a long time to really walk through that. But I had good people step into my life and help me do that. And so in the process of all of that, continued in ministry. I ended up actually pastoring a church and spent time doing that, while also learning about others who had struggled coming out of the military and particularly coming out of those combat environments. And a lot of different things happened, but there was an intersection of my ministry world and my military world, and started working with veterans and service members and first responders, which is what I do now in the organization that I'm a part of. And so, yeah, a lot of experience personally dealing with feelings of inadequacy, a loss of identity, and that loss of identity leading to no clarity at all around my purpose or my reason for being here. So personally dealt with that. And then on the other side of that, I've walked through that with literally thousands of people. So that's the long and short. I'm married. I have 4 kids. 2 of them are adults. 2 are teenagers in high school. I have 1 granddaughter. She's 10 months old, and she's pretty awesome. So yeah, it's a very full life.
First, I want to say thank you for your service. And one thing I feel like is not often talked about, or at least I haven't really seen it, is we're starting to get to the point where we are talking more about PTSD, right?
Yes.
Especially with veterans, active military. We are often, I've never heard someone talk about that loss of identity, right? That shift. I haven't seen that as part of the conversation very frequently. And I imagine that's a very difficult transition.
It is. Yeah, it is. And you're right. So when I left the Marine Corps in 2003, no one was talking about post-traumatic stress. And if it was talked about, it was talked about in kind of quiet corners, right? Like, you're broken, there's something wrong with you. Strong people are able to push through. It was kind of that context. Thankfully, that's changed, and a lot of attention has been brought to the topic of post-traumatic stress, what it is, what it isn't, where it comes from, and all of those things. So that's been a developing conversation that thankfully is taking away a lot of the stigma for people that need to get help. And so that's been great. Along with that, and probably in the last few years, this question of transition. And so, we used to look at it as if post-traumatic stress was one thing. There is a traumatic event or events. For those that have served in combat, you can look at very specific, very traumatic events that took place, the loss of people that you cared about, perhaps personal injury to yourself, being in environments where fear is a daily, presence and occurrence, the potential for loss of life, all of those things. And so you could look at that and point at that and say, well, that's why I am struggling the way that I'm struggling. That's why I'm treating people the way that I'm treating them. That's why I'm doing things the way I am, because of this trauma that happened over there. And so we looked at post-traumatic stress and trauma as very almost colorless. It's one thing. This is what it is. Well, we've come to understand that particularly people in those violent environments where things are exploding and other things are happening, that things like traumatic brain injury and other physical injuries can present themselves with many of the same symptoms that post-traumatic stress does. So that's opened up the conversation where now we're looking at this as, okay, it's not just this kind of binary thing. There are other aspects to it. And that has led to conversations around transition. So perhaps the question is presented, perhaps the reason people are behaving the way they are after a military career is not necessarily because of trauma, although that may be a part of it, but maybe it's just because of a loss of identity, leaving the environment that told them who they were and told them what to wear and told them where they fell on the hierarchy. It's all very clear. We know what the mission is. We know where we're going. We know what we're doing all of the time. We know who we're around. We have a support system. And then from one day to the next, all of that is gone. And now we're in a different place. And what looks like post-trauma stress, and some of it may be and probably is, but a lot of it just may be a complete lack of who am I now? What purpose do I serve? Why do I exist? And that has become a conversation that more and more people are having. And interestingly, not just in the military or out of the military, but people who've been in corporate settings for a long time or other environments where there's a strong identity component. When that ends and life moves on, if you don't reestablish your identity, this is who I am, then other things will start to fall as well.
Yeah, it's the identity piece is I've come to find throughout my very long life, throughout my 20-something years.
Sure.
It's very confusing. right? Figuring out where you fit in. And my limited experience with that has been transitioning from being a student to not being a student. And I know how terrified I was when the world wasn't structured and certain anymore. It wasn't that my schedule was go sit in this class and your purpose of being in this class is to take this test. And that was just kind of it. So I can't begin to imagine what it's like for a transition from military to a world that's so uncertain. And I know my older cousin was in the Navy, and when he came out, a big thing was figuring out what kind of job made sense for him, because he went in before college. So now he was like, do I go back to college? Do I go to college? What kind of job do I want? Where do I fit in? It feels like my friends and family kind of have this whole separate life now, and I'm coming back trying to figure out my even place here. So I imagine when it's not just one component of, well, student to not student, but like your entire life, how do you begin to figure out, how did you begin to figure out who you were outside of that world now?
Yeah, so it was a process, and this is something that we teach and talk to veterans and service members, first responders. There's something about wearing a uniform and having a job that's different than the rest of society that gives you a strong sense of identity. And so we talk to people about this, and it's a couple of things. It's, first of all, understanding that there's a difference between who you are and what you do. I don't know if this is everywhere, but certainly in Western culture, what we do becomes our identity, and we translate that into, this is who I am. I do this job, and so the title of that job really becomes my identity, or I fulfill this role in a relationship, and so now that's who I am. We can see this in families. We're told that the most dangerous time in a marriage for divorce is the first 2 years after a couple is married and the first 2 years after the last child leaves the home. Well, why is that? Because there's a complete identity shift. And it is a shift in, this is who I am now. No, that's something that you do, but that's not who you are. And if there's not clarity around that, that creates danger, because then we wonder where we fall. So transitioning out of the military, transitioning out of these other environments, there's a period of time where you have to go, oh, that was just a job that I did, or that was a relationship that I was involved in, or that was something that I was a part of, and it may have been great, but that doesn't mean that's who I am. So the question you have to answer then is, who am I really? Fundamentally, who am I? And again, there's a process. So the organization that I run is a faith-based organization. It's a Christian organization. And so what I would say, and this is the process I had to go through, is I had to learn how to tie my identity to someone that wouldn't change or wouldn't shift. If your identity is tied to a job, it's tied to school, it's tied to roles, it's tied to relationships, then when those things change, and inevitably they will, because that's life, then you lose your identity. You can't help but lose your identity, because the thing that gave you value has changed. And so we have to get to the point where we attach our value or our identity to that which does not change. Again, for me, I would say this is God, the creator. This is understanding He created me. He has a purpose for my life. And so whatever else is happening in my life, whatever else I'm connected to or get to be a part of, that may be great, it may not be great, doesn't matter. Doesn't change who I am. I am a person, a human, created in the image of God for a purpose that He's given to me as the creator. And that doesn't change, doesn't change. So that would be a starting point for me. Now, I think for all of us, we have to go through the process of understanding we're created unique. We have unique desires, we have unique talents, we have unique opportunities, and all of the rest of it. We are different than everyone else. And so to that, we have to ask questions like, what am I passionate about? What would I do, even if I couldn't get paid for it? I would love to be a part of that. What's a skill that I have that may be underdeveloped? Maybe I haven't invested in it, but it's a skill I have. It's unique to me. When I think about my future, where do I see myself? These are all of those elements, those components that God has created in us that make us uniquely who we are. and that aren't tied to a specific job or a specific role or a specific relationship. Now, those may function well in specific jobs, roles, or relationships, but those don't change. This is who I am. And until we come to terms with who I am, and again, for me, I would say this within the context of faith is very, very helpful, because it's not even about me. It's about who I was created to be, but who I was created uniquely to be. When I come to terms with that, then if things are going well, I'm thankful they're going well and I enjoy them. But if things don't go so well, I have to deal with that, but that doesn't change fundamentally who I am, and I'm able to continue moving forward. You mentioned this briefly, and maybe you'll want to talk more about it, but identity to me is the foundational piece that ends up with hope, or if not established, a lack of hope. Because until we know who we are, we don't know why we're here. That's purpose. And if we don't have a purpose, then we have to come to really some logical conclusions.
I'm just thinking about how many times, I've introduced myself based on a title, right?
Yes.
Walking into a room where I'm just Bill's daughter, or I created this organization, or my grandmother's caretaker, like that. I'm a student. Those are the roles I define myself by. So anytime that felt like it changed or it shifted, I felt like a loss of where do I fit in? And I never thought about defining who I am based on genuinely who I am, not who I am in relation to other people in the world.
Right.
So I couldn't answer to who, now go for myself personally, couldn't answer to who I am be like a girl who wants to make a difference, or am I assigning like something that could change?
Well, so a couple of things. One, the reason I think we introduce ourselves or connect with people based on titles is because it's easy. It's shorthand, right? It's easier than saying, I'm a girl who wants to make a difference. Like, yeah, I got it. But how are you doing that, right? Everyone wants to know what you do. So when people ask, who are you? I'm Jeremy. I'm the CEO of the Mighty Oaks Foundation. Well, people then contextualize that and go, okay, now I have a brief idea based on my own experience of who you are. And so it's a shorthand to just help people know who we are. As long as we don't assign our identity to those things, as long as we understand that's just a title, it's a job, it's important, it's something that people, that helps people understand who they're talking to. And then as that relationship becomes closer, we can go deeper and hopefully get past the job that I do to who I really am. But when you ask a question like that, okay, this is fundamentally who I am. I am, you said, a girl who wants to help other people. That's who you are. And that doesn't change. If that's sincere and that's who you are, then that doesn't change. I would say that was put into you by God, the Creator. He gave you that purpose, that identity, again, connected to Him, understanding where it comes from. But that's who you are. Okay, so then the question becomes, how do I live out that identity? Those things may change, and you're young. So over the course of your life, if you continue to strive to help people, it will change. Right now, you have an organization that you've started and that you use as a platform to communicate thoughts and ideas and help people to become better and all those things. That's how you're fulfilling that right now. That's how you're walking out that identity. But as you grow and as you develop other relationships and as you think about things a little more deeply or differently, maybe not deeply, but differently, as you have life experiences that shape how you view the world, how you accomplish or live out that identity certainly will change. But that's okay. And that's not something to be afraid of, because that's not who you are. Listen, so someone said this to me the other day. I was having a conversation with a business person about business, and I run an organization, so we were talking about that. And he stopped and he said, I've met a lot of people who have started organizations and run organizations, but I don't know if I've ever talked to anyone that is less tied to the organization than you are. I said, what does that mean? He said, you don't seem worried at all that it will go away or that you won't be doing this for the rest of your life. And no one had ever said that to me, but I find a lot of value in what I do. I'm very thankful for what I have the opportunity to do, but I know who I am outside of the job that I have. And so if it changes, and it certainly will, I'm getting older, my roles, responsibilities will change. That's okay. As long as the fundamental truth that I believe God created me as you to help people, and I would say this, I've written this down, to communicate truth to people. As long as that doesn't change, that's who I am, that's who I was created to be, then how that's done, the mode, the job, what that looks like, that is going to shift. But that doesn't impact who I am. Does that make sense? That was a lot of words, but I don't know if that makes sense.
It does make sense. So what I'm hearing is who you are doesn't change, just what you do. Like your purpose and how you approach it, your behaviors, all of that can change, but the core of who you are is what leads you to figure out, I guess.
That's right. And that's why we have to become clear, get some clarity around fundamentally, who am I? I am a person who would help people. In your case, I'm putting words in your mouth. I don't know if this is true or not. I think it is. I would help people whether I got paid to do it or not. I would volunteer. If I was working another job to make money, to pay the rent, I would still volunteer to help people. I would still set aside time to have conversations with hurting people. I would still learn so that I could communicate helpful truths to other people. If that's the case, then that's who you are. So the job, the way, the modality, it matters less in terms of things shift and things move, but you continue to do what you really feel called to do.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm thinking about people who, I know for me, something that was really hard was like that self-awareness, understanding who I am beneath all society's expectations and milestones. So how do you begin to, maybe if you feel like I don't know who I am, like what advice do you have maybe for someone who's kind of there right now and wants to work on this?
Yeah. Well, again, I would, for me, that was trying to understand what I believe God has created all of us to be. So it starts there. Understanding that in spite of our hurt and our brokenness and our insecurity and our fear and the rest of it, our Creator wants to have a relationship with us. So I find an identity. I find identification with that. And that doesn't change. So then the question becomes, what have I been uniquely gifted to accomplish? And this is something that may take some time to figure out, but you go through that process of understanding, I'm different than other people in what ways? What do I really enjoy doing? So, you ask yourself these questions. What would I, on a Saturday afternoon, I've got nothing else to do, it's free. What would I love to do? What is the thing that I would love to fill that time with? Well, that speaks to who you are. The books that you enjoy reading, the conversations that you enjoy having, you start to evaluate these things and recognize that that's what makes me who I am. What motivates me to get up when I don't feel good in the morning, when I wake up and I still feel down? What motivates me to get up? And just walking through the process of understanding who I am. What are some things that other people have told you that you're good at? Areas of giftedness that other people have identified in you. And again, they don't have to be fully developed, but these are areas that people have called out in your life that, boy, you're unique, or that's a little bit different, or that's a strength that you have that other people don't have. This is why it can be very helpful to place ourselves in community environments where there are people a little further down the road that can watch us, that can talk to us, that can walk us through questions like this one, people that know us, people that have observed us and can help us to see that, because we don't always see that clearly. Maybe it's getting together with a mentor or someone who's been a friend for a long time that will speak truth into your life. You may not figure this out on your own. There are a lot of things that you can. I love doing that. I enjoy that. That really brings me energy and a sense of purpose. Again, I would do that even if I didn't get paid to do that. But then asking some people who have a unique insight into your life. What do you see in me that is unique or special? What do you see in me that's maybe a little bit different than other people? What's an area that you would say I'm gifted in that I should, pursue, something that you would encourage me to pursue. So it's asking those introspective questions and then getting the right people in your life that can help speak truth into your life and help you see things a little more clearly. Putting yourself in good environments, getting out of bad environments. Man, I would say this too. A lot of people don't ever find their true self because they have negative, I don't know if the word is influences, but they have people in their lives that tell them they're worthless. They lack value. They aren't special. They aren't gifted. They don't have anything to offer. Those things aren't true. Put yourself in environments where people can look at it and say, no, you are good at this. You are good at that. I've seen this in you. I've watched how you talk to other people. I've heard you communicate, whatever. Put yourself in environments where people can be honest with you. Don't have people lie to you, but people can be honest with you and really speak truth. And if people are tearing you down, if people are telling you have no value, you have no worth, you shouldn't try, those aren't the people that are going to help you get to where God wants you to be. He created you with a purpose. He designed you specific to who you are and to who he wanted you to be. And you need to figure that out and then start living that out.
Oh, so many thoughts just came to my head. First, this reminds me of an exercise I did as a kid where it was, what do you like to do? What would you want to do? And then what are you good at? And then what are you good at was talking to other people and asking them, like, what do you think I'm good at? Because for me, it was so hard as someone who just likes to criticize myself a lot.
Yeah.
Right. And say, oh, I'm not good at anything. I can't do anything. Being able to ask other people what they saw. And then what do I actually enjoy doing? What do I want to do? Because I could enjoy something, but not want to continue to do it all the time and make that a career. So that's how I figured out what I wanted to do at 12. But it just reminds me of that, being able to ask other people and find people around me who had kind things to say, and how different it was when I listened to people who made me feel like I could be someone, like I did matter, instead of people who told me all the reasons why I couldn't do or why I couldn't be. And learning that, I'm still learning that now.
Of course.
My identity gets wrapped up in other people who are not being kind. It is so hard. So your environment, the impact of your environment is so important.
Yeah, it is. And one of the challenges for particularly younger people like yourself and even younger than you is that information is constantly pushed to us by way of social media and other, other outlets. It's pushed to us, and positive messaging, encouraging thoughts, the rest of it, that doesn't get the response that negativity does. And so much of what is pushed to us and what we consume subconsciously or otherwise is negativity. And so we start to internalize these thoughts. I'm not as good as someone else, or there is no hope for the future. Look how bad everything is, or someone that I used to look up to has failed in some way. And so we're constantly taking all of this in. And when we do that, we internalize it. Again, whether we're just scrolling past it or we spend time looking at it, we're taking it in, we're processing it, whether we know it or not, we're making it a part of how we view the world. It's now a part of my perspective, the lens through which I see the world, and how I feel about myself. And so it's very, very important, if you want to get to the ground of who am I, to intentionally and diligently listen to the right voices, read the right things, consume the right content, put yourself in the right environments so that you can actually see and hear and think clearly. Otherwise, you think you're thinking your own thoughts, but you're really thinking the thoughts you were told to think and don't even realize it. And so that negativity gets a lot of play. But when we bring it on board, it starts to guide how we even think about ourselves, how we view other people. In a lot of ways, it removes our hope for the future.
I always forget about like that digital aspect, right? How much, we're consuming things online all the time. I am.
All the time.
I'm always on Instagram scrolling.
Most people are.
Yeah. And it's so, I always forget how much that impacts your worldview. It's not just the people physically around you in your environment. It's
That's right. That's
who
right.
you follow, but also who the algorithm puts in
Right.
front of you. So a lot of
Right.
times we are not really don't know our own thoughts because we're being bombarded in
Mm.
every direction.
Yep.
I I feel like I have so much to reflect on after this. So right
well,
now, I'm like,
we all do. We all have a lot to reflect on.
what is mine? Okay, so there's the who am I? And then you lead that into what should I do? So then we can begin to turn purpose into a reason for being here. So how does the next
Yeah.
step kind of come into play?
So, and I think you and I talked about this when, the first time we talked, but a lot of clinical care for people who are struggling and maybe struggling with thoughts of suicide or, a slate of other issues that would be considered, that would fall under the category of there's a hopelessness that leads to bad actions, right? And I think when we're looking at suicide and some of those things, there's a lack of hope. There's no hope. There's nothing in front of me. There's no reason to be here. And so I start to make these bad decisions. Maybe it's the loss of life. Maybe it's just destructive behavior because it doesn't matter anyhow. Well, so much of clinical care is intervention. It's preventing someone from doing harm to themselves. Let's get them into a program. Let's take away the means by which they could harm themselves. And that has a place for sure. But that's on the kind of the low end. If we can get out in front of that and help people understand the reason they're here, then they have hope for the future because they know why they're here and they know what they're trying to accomplish. And so hopefully we won't have to intervene in those critical areas or at those critical times. And so when I think of this, I don't think of how do we stop someone from hurting themselves. I go back a step and ask the question, how can we interject hope into someone who's hopeless? How can we even take away the thought of self-harm and the rest of it? And I realize there are other factors there. I'm not diminishing that. But for a lot of people, they end up in those places of hurting themselves or others or just entering into destructive behavior because they've given up. That's hopelessness. So how do we interject hope? Well, I think we then have to go back one more step and find purpose. And that begins with identity, which we just talked about. I have to know who I am. And if I know who I am, I can define that, then I can take the next step of understanding why I'm here. This is who I am. So, I'll use your example. I'm a girl who wants to help people. That's who I am. Okay. Well, now that leads to purpose. I know who I am. How do I walk that out? How do I live that out? So now it brings clarity. I'm not trying to figure out who I am anymore. I'm not trying to go through this exercise of wondering if I have value and the rest of it. I know who I am. Now I just need to settle on a way to live that out. And maybe that begins by volunteering. Maybe that begins by calling people who you know are having a hard time or intentionally connecting with people that may be struggling and starting to work with them. Perhaps it's getting an education so that you can help people in a specific way. Whatever that is, my identity and clarity around that has now led to purpose because I'm walking out who I am. And what that does ultimately, I think, is it gives us hope because I'm fulfilling the reason, the purpose that I was placed on this earth. I know why I'm here. Why am I here? I'm here to help people. Now, I need to figure out the best way to do that. I'm going to continue to work on that and find the best way to actually help people. But that's why I'm here. I'm going to live that out. So every day of my life, I'm going to get up and figure out how to live out my purpose, how I'm going to help people. That will look different over the course of my life. That will look different based on my relationships. The how is going to change, but the what won't change. I'm going to walk that out. And when I'm fulfilling my purpose, then there is hope. It gives a sense of control. It clarifies your place in the world. I know what I'm doing. And it allows me to look down the road and say, as long as I'm here, I can keep doing what I came here to do. And the world may be happy or sad. It may be violent or at peace. It may be good or bad. It doesn't matter. I can continue to do the work that I'm called to do. So again, using that example, I want to help people. Well, if there is a natural disaster in your area, you fulfill your created purpose, you live out your identity by handing out bottles of water, by going to places where people need blankets and food, and you get involved in that. You're living out your identity. That's your purpose in this moment. Things are going really well where there are still people who are struggling. How do I connect with them? And on we can go. So identity, understanding who I am, is absolutely necessary if we're going to take the next step and have purpose. This is why I'm here.
It is so powerful to be able to figure out that reason that I'm here, figuring out that purpose. Yep. And like you said, I mean, I'm a big fan of therapy, love going to therapy.
Yeah,
but a lot of times the conversation wasn't, why am I here? Right? Like, what's my reason to stay? It was, how can we change these negative thoughts? How can I go from, or not even how, but going from I don't feel valued to I feel valued, but not going into that deep of, well, how do I feel valued? Who am I? Right? Creating that internally. And when you're able to do that, it really makes a difference. For me, sorry.
No, go ahead. That's right.
For me, I've attempted to end my life 3 times, been in a psych unit. And one thing that really changed for now when those thoughts do arise, it's I have something that makes me want to be here, to keep going. And that's my work. I love doing it so much. I love being able to do something that makes others feel seen or gives them a tool.
Right.
But being able, if it was just countering a negative thought, it wouldn't have as much for me personally. And I don't want to speak on behalf of other people, but for me personally, it does not make as much of an impact as this is why I'm here. This is why I matter and I belong.
That's right. And, again, in that specific context that you just talked about, you can go, and there are other people that need for me to be here. There are other people that need for me to continue living because I've been created to help people. I've gotten an education in how to help people. I have lived experience that I can share with people. And there are some folks that may not have the same access to those resources and those communities and the education that I've had. They need me, right? And so that's what purpose is. It's understanding that I have a way to live out who I am. Here's the challenge. If we look at negative thoughts and behaviors and traumas that have happened to us and the rest of it as things to be conquered, then we spend the rest of our life working on conquering those things, eliminating the bad thoughts and feelings, changing behaviors, changing habits, no longer thinking about people who've hurt me in the past and some of those other things that have happened. And listen, we need to work to eliminate bad feelings and thoughts and the rest of it. There's a place for that. However, where I think a lot of people struggle is they spend their life going back again and again and again to the well of brokenness and hurt and trauma, instead of saying, that happened to me, but that's not who I am. And in spite of what happened to me, I can continue to move forward in my identity and purpose. And this is a hard conversation to have, because this is not me saying you need to get over it. That's not what I'm saying. And I think we need professional help to deal with feelings and all the rest of it. But we also have to continue moving forward. It's a little bit like, I've been married for almost 28 years. And I love my wife. She's absolutely incredible. But there are times over the course of a marriage where, you don't feel in love. It's just part of being human, and we, do things and say things and whatever. In order for a relationship to grow and blossom and continue, there has to be something in us that says, I'm going to continue to serve her and care for her and, buy her flowers and give her gifts, whether I feel like it or not, because she's my wife, because I have a relationship that I'm committed to. And it's crazy. the feelings always follow the actions, whether it's in a relationship or a lot of other places. And I think so often when people are struggling with past hurts and brokenness and traumas, they're waiting for the feelings to change before the actions change. And it's amazing how the feelings change when we start to take action, when we start to do things, when we start to move forward. For me, the difference between surviving something and being a survivor, or the difference between being victimized and being a victim, is whether or not you're able to move forward. And I think having been the victim of someone's bad decisions and hurt is one thing, but becoming a lifelong victim, that's a decision we get to make. And it's largely based on whether or not we move forward in spite of what's happened to us. Are we going to give up control of our life and our future to someone back here that hurt us, or some circumstance or situation that came into our lives? Or are we going to deal with those, address those, work through those, and that may take a lifetime, but continue investing in other people and building a life that matters in the process? And I think some people get so caught up in this spiral of let me figure it all out. You may never figure it all out, but you have the capacity and the wherewithal and the autonomy to decide how you're going to live out who you are.
I feel like so many people, or I spent so many years getting stuck in, and I hate speaking on behalf of other people, so going back to me,
Sure.
I get stuck in this idea of, right, like you said in the very beginning, of when you're responding to conquering, right, and feeling like, well, I need to beat this first. I need to get over this first. And then because I keep coming from that mindset, every time I then do have a negative thought, or I do have like a self-harm urge, right? Any of that comes into my mind, I feel like I'm failing. So then I'm stuck in this constant back and forth of, I need to get over this, but it happened again, I'm failing, I can't do this. And it becomes permanent instead of feeling like a temporary situation that's going to have ups and downs of life. It feels like this is all it's ever going to be. I'm stuck here in this cycle. And we change that and recognize that that can still exist. But if I have some, like, the ability to move forward, I have something that's keeping me here. When that happens, right, it is a temporary feeling. I'm not stuck anymore.
That's right. Yeah, it is a temporary feeling and it will pass. But you can't give into that feeling, and you have to be so clear on, look, this is why I'm here, and maybe people are going to throw rocks at me, and maybe my past is going to reach up and grab me once in a while, and maybe I'm going to really feel it. I mean, deep emotion around something that happened or maybe is happening. It's okay to recognize that that's taking place, while also recognizing that it doesn't have to control my behavior. Those can be separate things. And we conflate the two, how I feel with what I do, so that we can't experience one without the other. And what I'm saying is, and you just said it, is we have to learn how to move forward with purpose and meaning and value, understanding why we're here and what's at stake if we don't do what we have been uniquely created and called to do. We have to be able to do all of that while also feeling the feelings sometimes and having the hurts and experiencing the stuff. And maybe that means you've got a close personal friend that you can reach out to and just offload that to, and they can encourage you. There's a habit or a mantra that you use to encourage yourself in those moments. There's a picture that you hold up of, your family or the people that you really do care about and have a deep connection with, that brings you back to clarity around what you're doing and why, that helps you get past that. But you can do both things at the same time. People ask me a lot about the topic, we're off topic here, but the topic of forgiveness, because a lot of people get hurt and they just never get past that and they can't forgive. And so the question is sometimes, we use that phrase, you need to bury the hatchet or forgive and forget and all that. It's ridiculous, right? Like we're not wired that way. You need to forgive. But you may need to forgive every day for a while. You may need to forgive every time that thought or that feeling comes into your heart and mind. You may need to forgive again and again, and that's okay. It doesn't mean you failed. It just means you're human. It means that something you saw or experienced reminded you of someone who hurt you, and you need to go through that process again. It's okay. It's okay. But don't let that, and in the case of traumas or brokenness or other hurts or bad decisions, I mean, we do things to ourselves, right? We make bad decisions. Don't let that create a regret or a cloud that prevents us from moving forward. Get up and start moving forward. And it's amazing how your perspective will change, but how you feel about what you're involved in will change as well.
I love the point of the forgiveness too, because self-forgiveness, sometimes, forgiving yourself for not knowing until you knew, right? For not, right. For feeling like you're stuck in a cycle until you were able to finally break out, being able to offer yourself that forgiveness time and time again until you're able to truly kind of forgive and keep moving forward. I think that's something that's not often talked about. It's usually like, oh, just forget and forget. But sometimes it really is. I mean, I'm sure most of the time it really is a day-by-day process, hour-by-hour process.
It can be. And to be clear, this is not a, put your head down and grind it out type of philosophy. This isn't just, hey, just move forward. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. Although some people take it that way. That's not what I'm talking about. But it is acknowledging I need to deal with the emotions. I need to deal with the feelings. I need to have people in my life that can speak truth and pull me out of that pit I sometimes walk into. I need that. But I can do that while also accomplishing something important and accomplishing something of value. And man, there's a lot of power in that.
There is. Jeremy, you've been absolutely amazing. As we're wrapping up, first tell us a bit more about Mighty Oaks Foundation.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So we serve veterans, service members, first responders, and spouses. And a lot of the people that we work with have dealt with some kind of trauma, whether it's related to their service in the military as a first responder or just life. And then they brought it into uniform service. And so we have the opportunity to walk them through a process of talking about trauma, what it is, what it isn't, and how to move forward. And a lot of what we just talked about, how to move forward in spite of what's happened in your past. We don't charge anything for our program. We don't charge anything to attend our program in terms of travel and the rest of it. We cover all those costs. So if you fall into that category, you can find us on our website, mightyoaksprograms.org. There's a place to apply, and we'd love to hear from you and help you.
That is incredible. And what's one last thing that you'd like to leave our audience with?
I think it's the thing we started with, and we have to have hope. and we allow ourselves, our circumstances, other people to convince us that there is no hope. But there is. And with that in mind, if you're not experiencing that hope right now, then back up to the purpose and back up to the identity and start working through those. And if you need to get some people involved in helping you do that, get some people involved in helping you do that. But don't ever give up. There is always hope. It may not feel like it. Again, we've got to separate our feelings from our actions. It may not feel like it, but there is always hope. Let the feeling pass and then engage with who you are.
Thank you so much for listening to Normalize the Conversation. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. This podcast is an initiative of Inspiring My Generation, focusing on normalizing the conversation, bringing education and awareness to the forefront, and amplifying global voices to spark change and hope. Inspiring My Generation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization on a mission towards suicide prevention through awareness, conversation, education, and support. Connect with us on Instagram at Inspiring My Generation and visit our website, inspiringmygeneration.org, to learn more about our work and how you can make a difference.